It was the summer of 2019, a time of transition and hope, when my family uprooted our lives and relocated to Albany, New York. My husband, David, had accepted a prestigious position as a literature professor at a local college, a career move that promised stability and a fresh chapter for us all. Our daughter Zoe was 12, a bright, introspective girl with a voracious appetite for books and a quiet curiosity that mirrored my own at her age. As a librarian, I'd nurtured her love for stories, passing down my passion for the written word. Those first weeks in Albany were a whirlwind of unpacking cardboard boxes, exploring tree-lined streets, and settling into our new home. A charming two-story colonial with creaky hardwood floors and wide windows that let in golden streams of sunlight. Everything felt ripe with possibility, as if we were stepping into a storybook of our own making. Zoe was both nervous and excited about starting at her new middle school, a well-regarded institution with glowing reviews, a dedicated faculty, and a sprawling campus that felt safe and welcoming. I'd done my research, poring over parent forums and school ratings, ensuring it was the right fit for her. Her first week passed smoothly, and she came home each day with stories of new friends and favorite classes. English, she told us over dinner one evening, was her favorite. Her eyes sparkled as she described her teacher, Mr. Caldwell, a man she called really kind and super smart. He'd recommended a fantasy novel she'd never heard of, one not even stocked in the school library. I smiled, warmed by her enthusiasm. Teachers who took the time to foster a student's curiosity were rare, and as a librarian, I appreciated his effort to ignite her passion for literature. Over the next few weeks, Zoe's admiration for Mr. Caldwell grew. She spoke of him often, recounting how he praised her writing, encouraged her to explore complex themes, and even stayed after class to discuss story structure and symbolism. His attentiveness seemed genuine, almost inspiring, and I was grateful that Zoe had found a mentor who recognized her potential. Then, about a month into the school year, an email arrived from Mr. Caldwell. It was polite, professional, and filled with praise for Zoe's talent. He introduced himself, noting that she was a standout student, and included a curated list of advanced reading recommendations tailored to her interests. He mentioned lending her a personal copy of a book, explaining that the school's collection didn't have it. I responded warmly, thanking him for his dedication and sharing my own suggestions as a fellow literature enthusiast. We exchanged another email about a young adult author Zoe might enjoy, and I felt a sense of camaraderie, as if we were partners in nurturing her intellectual growth. But the emails didn't stop there. They arrived with increasing frequency, each one more detailed than the last. Mr. Caldwell wrote lengthy analyses of Zoe's essays, weaving in philosophical musings and quoting books far beyond the middle school curriculum. His tone remained professional, but there was an intensity to his words, a personal investment that felt out of place for a teacher-student relationship. I began to notice subtle shifts in Zoe's behavior. She spoke of Mr. Caldwell with a reverence that bordered on obsession, describing him as the only teacher who really understood her. Her loyalty to him was palpable, and it unsettled me, though I couldn't pinpoint why. One evening, while Zoe slept, I slipped a note about her upcoming orthodontist appointment into her backpack. As I tucked it into a side pocket, my fingers brushed against a slim, leather-bound journal that didn't belong to the school. Its cover was worn, the edges soft from use, and it felt out of place among her spiral notebooks and pencils. Curiosity got the better of me, and I opened it. Inside, Zoe's familiar handwriting filled the pages, stories, reflections, fragments of poetry. But what caught my eye were the notes scrawled in the margins in a neat, unfamiliar script. They weren't just feedback on her writing, they were personal, intimate, commenting on her dreams, her fears, her innermost thoughts. On one page, in the upper right corner, a single line stood out. "Some thoughts are too precious to share with just anyone. Keep this between us." My heart thudded as I read those words. The journal felt heavy in my hands, like it carried a secret I wasn't meant to uncover. The next morning, I asked Zoe about it, keeping my tone light to avoid alarming her. She blushed, her eyes darting to the floor, and explained that Mr. Caldwell had given her the journal as a safe space to explore her thoughts. He'd told her not to share it with anyone, saying it would ruin the magic of their project. Her words were tinged with embarrassment, but also a fierce protectiveness, as if she'd been entrusted with something sacred. I nodded, forcing a smile, but inside my stomach churned. That afternoon, I drafted an email to Mr. Caldwell. I thanked him for his efforts, but expressed my discomfort with the secretive nature of the journal. His reply came within minutes, apologetic and polished. He assured me the project was purely academic, meant to encourage Zoe's creativity, and promised to end it immediately. He thanked me for my candor, and I wanted to believe him. But after that, Zoe changed. She stopped talking about English class, her once vibrant stories replaced by silence. Her nightly reading ritual, a sacred part of our bond, vanished. She retreated to her room, closing the door with a soft click that felt like a barrier between us. I tried not to overreact. I didn't want to sow doubt in her mind or make her feel she'd done something wrong. Instead, I watched, listened, and took mental notes. 2 weeks later, another email from Mr. Caldwell arrived, this time praising Zoe's emotional maturity and her rare ability to grasp adult concepts. The words felt like a violation, too intimate for a teacher to write about a 12-year-old. I didn't respond. Instead, I called the school and requested a meeting with the vice principal. I brought the journal, laid out the pattern, the emails, the private book loans, the secretive notes, the unsettling language. The vice principal listened, her face a mask of professionalism, but her responses were vague, promises to look into it, assurances that boundaries would be reinforced. A week later, when I followed up, I was told the matter had been reviewed. Mr. Caldwell, a highly respected teacher, had done nothing actionable. They'd spoken to him, they said, and reminded all faculty of professional standards. Tried to let it go to convince myself I was overthinking it, but Zoe's behavior grew worse. She woke up at night complaining of headaches, her eyes shadowed with exhaustion. Her grades in other classes plummeted. One evening, while I washed dishes, I overheard her whispering on the phone to a friend. "No, I can't tell anyone. He said it would ruin everything." My heart stopped. I walked into her room, keeping my voice steady, and asked who she was talking about. She froze, her face pale, then burst into tears. Through sobs, she confessed that Mr. Caldwell had asked her to write about deeply personal things, her dreams, her fears, secrets she hadn't even shared with me. He'd told her their bond was special, that others wouldn't understand, that she'd betray his trust if she spoke of it. The next morning, I stormed into the school's front office, the journal clutched in my hand, Zoe's words echoing in my mind. This time, the administration's tone shifted. They promised a formal investigation but offered no details. I pulled Zoe out of school for a week, enrolling her in online classes to keep her safe. A month later, Mr. Caldwell resigned without explanation. The school issued no statement, sent no warnings to other parents. I only learned the truth when another mother, a woman I barely knew, called me. Her daughter had experienced something eerily similar. Private journals, whispered conversations, compliments that felt too heavy for a child to bear. She'd reported it weeks before I did, but the school had dismissed her concerns. Zoe is healing now. Therapy has helped her reclaim her voice, and she started journaling again, this time openly, sharing her silly, chaotic stories with me. But the what-ifs haunt me. What if she hadn't spoken up? What if I'd ignored my instincts? What if I'd let it slide just a little longer? The thought of how close we came to something worse keeps me awake at night. A shadow that lingers, long after the danger is past. The spring of 2020 brought a different kind of challenge. I'd bought a tablet for my daughter Riley during a spring sale. A bright, kid-friendly model with chunky corners and a sturdy rubber bumper. Riley, 5 years old and thriving in kindergarten, had earned it with her seamless transition to school. As a single mom and first-grade teacher, my days were a blur of lesson plans, grading, and household chores. The tablet was meant to be a tool, not a babysitter. a way to keep Riley engaged with educational apps while I cooked dinner or caught my breath. I was meticulous in setting it up, enabling every parental control, locking down the browser, and approving only a handful of apps. I read reviews, checked forums, and even sat with Riley for the first few days, watching her trace letters and color digital storybooks. She took to it instantly, her favorite being a drawing app where she could bring fairy tale characters to life with vibrant colors. She'd name each one, giving them voices and personalities, her giggles filling the house. I marveled at her imagination, proud of the creative spark in her eyes. One evening, as we ate spaghetti at the kitchen table, Riley casually mentioned that Marcus liked her new blue pajamas. "Marcus, my friend in the tablet," she said, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. I laughed, though a flicker of unease crept in. "Which game is Marcus from?" I asked, expecting her to name one of her apps. She shrugged, her pigtails bouncing. "He doesn't live in a game. He just lives in there." I brushed it off, chalking it up to her vivid imagination. Kids invented friends all the time, didn't they? I checked her apps later, searching for a character named Marcus. There was none. I Googled the game's character lists, scoured developer, websites, nothing. Still, it seemed harmless, so I let it slide. But Marcus became a constant presence. At breakfast, Riley announced that Marcus wanted strawberry cereal next time. At bedtime, she said Marcus suggested sleeping on the left side of the bed. Her tone wasn't playful. It was matter-of-fact, as if she were relaying messages from a real person. Then, one night, as I passed her room, I heard her whispering. Not the sing-song chatter of a child playing, but a hushed, secretive murmur. I paused, ear pressed to the door, and heard a second voice, low, distorted like static through a speaker. My pulse quickened. I pushed the door open, and there was Riley sitting cross-legged on the floor, the tablet propped up in her lap, its glow casting eerie shadows on her face. She looked up and smiled. "Marcus says you look tired," she said. I grabbed the tablet, my hands trembling. The screen was black, no app running, no video playing. I asked who she was talking to, and she replied, "Marcus. He was helping me draw." That night, I barely slept. At dawn, I checked the tablet's usage logs. Nothing unusual. No apps active during the time I'd heard the voice. The microphone permissions were disabled, the camera locked. I reset the device, wiping it clean, and hesitated before giving it back to Riley. I told myself I was being paranoid, that it was just a glitch or my imagination. But a few days later, Riley wandered into the kitchen, her brow furrowed. "Mom, why did Marcus say you were crying last night?" My heart stopped. I hadn't told her I'd cried. It had been late after she was asleep when I'd sat on the couch overwhelmed by work and loneliness, letting silent tears fall. No one could have known, unless the tablet had been there watching, listening. I tore through the device, checking for hidden apps, unauthorized Bluetooth connections, anything. Nothing. Desperate, I turned to online forums, diving into threads about cybersecurity and parenting. What I found chilled me. Stories of hackers targeting children's devices, accessing microphones and cameras even when settings were locked. One parent described a toy camera that lit up at night. Another recounted a tablet playing back their child's voice hours after bedtime. I felt sick. I locked the tablet in my bedroom drawer, ignoring Riley's tears and pleas that Marcus would be lonely. That night, at 2 a.m., a soft buzzing woke me. A faint glow flickered from the drawer. The tablet was on, though I hadn't touched. I opened the drawer, my hands shaking, and saw the screen light up with a blank white page. Then in black letters, words appeared. "Why did you lie to her?" I dropped the tablet, the screen cracking as it hit the floor. Another sentence followed. "She trusts me. You don't." I didn't hesitate. I grabbed a hammer from the kitchen and smashed the tablet until it was a pile of shattered plastic and glass. The screen went dark. The buzzing stopped. I told Riley. It was broken and she grew quiet, her spark dimming. She stopped drawing, stopped whispering to herself at night. I don't know who or what Marcus was, but his voice didn't sound like a child's. Parents, please be vigilant. Child-friendly devices aren't always safe. Hackers can slip through the cracks, even with parental controls. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. It was a crisp February morning in Florida, the kind where the air carries a slight chill, but the sun warms your skin like a gentle embrace. I was buckling my 7-month-old daughter Melanie into her car seat, her tiny socked foot waving in the air as she babbled happily. Her eyes, wide and curious, followed the glint of my keys, the rustle of a grocery bag, the dance of sunlight across the dashboard. At 7 months, everything was a wonder to her, and I loved watching her discover the world. We were headed to the grocery store, a routine Tuesday trip for diapers, formula, and eggs. I pulled into the lot at 9:30 a.m., the parking lane sparse with only a few cars scattered about. I chose a spot further out to avoid door dings, loaded Melanie into her stroller, and tucked her favorite blanket around her. The store was familiar, the cart with its wobbly wheel a running joke in my mind. Nothing felt amiss. Inside, I narrated our trip to Melanie, my voice a soothing rhythm. "Bananas or apples today, kiddo?" I'd ask, smiling as she cooed and kicked her feet. We moved through the aisles, produce, cereal, dairy, her tiny hands reaching for colorful packages. I paused by the yogurt display to check a coupon on my phone, and that's when I saw him. A man, late 40s, shaved head, glasses, unremarkable in every way, stood by the cheese section, holding a tub of yogurt but not really looking at it. As I pushed the stroller past, he glanced down at Melanie and smiled. "Hi, Melanie," he said, his voice warm but unnervingly familiar. "You're even cuter in person." My heart lurched. I hadn't said her name. Not in the store, not in the parking lot. Her onesie was plain, her diaper bag unmarked. I was meticulous about privacy, my social media locked down, no photos or names shared publicly. I stared at him, his smile lingering, too long, too knowing. I forced a tight smile and hurried away, my grip on the stroller white-knuckled. By the next aisle, my pulse was racing. I glanced back. He was gone. I rushed through the rest of the list, skipping half the items, and bolted for the checkout. The cashier's small talk felt distant, my eyes scanning the store for that man. I didn't see him again. In the parking lot, I loaded Melanie into her car seat and popped the trunk. That's when I noticed it, a folded piece of paper tucked under my windshield wiper. I pulled it free, my hands trembling. "You're doing great, Mom." That was all it said. I climbed into the driver's seat, locked the doors, and drove home, checking the rearview mirror obsessively. At home, I closed every blind, turned on every light, and checked the locks 3 times. I called my husband Mark, who came home early. We reviewed our outdoor camera footage. Nothing. The store's security team was sympathetic but skeptical when I called the next day. 2 days later, the manager called back. They'd reviewed the footage. The man had arrived before us, circled the parking lot, waited by the carts until we entered, then followed us inside. He bought nothing and left right after we did. My blood ran cold. He'd been watching, waiting. The police took the footage and my report, but without a clear threat or identifiable details, they could do little. For weeks, I barely left the house. Every knock, every unfamiliar car sent my heart racing. I changed our routines. New store, new stroller with a cover, a baby,